And we're gonna start off with our first video. You notice everyone, he didn't come back out after that, after spending all that time snow blowing and shoveling and getting his pathway straight. He went back in the house, kicked the shoes off and said, I'm not going back out there and doing anything else. And what we're trying to convey in this is sometimes starting a company is like this. You thought you'd done everything you could to get the pathway as beautiful as you wanted, and then something happens that's unforeseen. And that's life also. It's not just starting a company, but they've done a good job thinking, okay, it's going to snow, and maybe they didn't factor something in because they didn't use a resource, or maybe he didn't know that the temperature was going to go up a little bit and make the snow a little bit more liquid, and thus let it off the roof as his porch. So we're going to really talk about that. Next slide, please. And then we see what our agenda is. Next slide. Now, what makes a good entrepreneur? In this video, in this slide, you see a number of people. You see some networking. Is it you need to be wealthy to be an entrepreneur? Is it you have great presentation skills? You see the gentleman Brunson in there. I don't know if there's anybody else that you remember. And there's a number of different categories of entrepreneurships, a number of different categories of businesses that you can own. There are a number of different categories of franchises that you can buy as well. So what were you guys, I like maybe two or three of you guys, what you all think makes a good entrepreneur? Anybody want to take a shot at it?
I think it takes a relentless spirit, like keeping a goal in mind and not giving up because it gets frustrating.
I was going to totally agree with that. That's what I was going to say. So instead, I'll say, from my experience, being willing to do the research, because it is so hard to find the guidance.
Gotcha. Okay. Anybody else?
I think you can take the show Shark Tank, which I'm a big fan of, which we used to watch, and then growing up with a wife whose family was always hustling, always opening up a business, that relentless approach, but also have a basic understanding of capital finance and the numbers. Got to know the numbers.
Right. That's very good. You guys, we're gonna have a good time for these next 2 days. So, and everybody, this is not a right or wrong scenario where you either 100% right or 100% wrong. There are a number of different components that make a good entrepreneur, and there are a number of weaknesses that could ruin a business. Not the entrepreneur, the business. So you can remain a good entrepreneur and have a business go out of business. There's a number of other factors that kind of change it, and that's one thing that before, next slide, please. Before we go fully into it, and the one other thing that I really want you to know is that, do you think that it's innate? Is it in your DNA to be an entrepreneur, or is it something that can be learned? So those who believe that entrepreneurship is in your DNA and not something you can be learned, raise your hand. Okay. And that's good, because I agree with you. For those who did not raise their hand, is that I believe it can be taught to you. And I believe there's some experiences that we are exposed to in our life early, or that we learn later, that kind of motivates us to say, you know what, I'm going to take some risk. And you can see what it is to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to take some risk. And just like, I think it was Miss Fannin, if I listened to voices correctly, that talked about doing the research. And what the research helps you do is it helps you mitigate the risk. You're going to have risk regardless. There's not a business that you're going to start that's not going to have risk to it. The question is how much risk. So if we can minimize or decrease the amount of risk that you are exposed to, the better your probabilities to sustain the business. Starting, I think, is easy. Sustaining the business and growing it is more challenging. I like to think of entrepreneurship as two things: as a way of thinking, and you can bring entrepreneurial thinking to your existing job, to your existing career, to your household, to the different organizations that you are a part of. You can bring that entrepreneurial thinking to it to see things from out of the box, or to see we can make this better. We can innovate it. We can change it. And we see that now with having to do Zoom approaches. Somebody's telling me that they were an event staffing company just pivoted, and they're in Maryland, to become a event planning business online. So they host online events now, like this Zoom, except it's in multi-states, and it may have, 80 to 100 people, and they having parties, and there's DJs and all this kind of stuff, and it's really neat. But so it's an approach to work and life as well. Next slide, please. All right. And just the question that we just talked about, is there a prototype? Prototype being, is it a DNA? Is it something that makes you more? And I've seen businesses that the grandparents did a good job starting it and growing it, and now that the grandchild has it, it's stable now and it's stale. There's no more growth to it. So just like I believe it was Miss Sanders that mentioned, it is a passion that you have to have, and that's something I don't think I can teach, or I haven't got that skill yet. Or instructing is I don't know if I can instill passion in someone yet. I can inspire you, but that passion is a little something that you have to have, and that level of commitment is something that, and I see your hand, Miss Sanders, is something that you have to bring yourself to. I don't know if I can teach commitment and passion. Those are things that I can try to motivate it and inspire it, but something's got to click in you. That light's got to kind of go off in you. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's not, teaching to be motivated to do, but but entrepreneurship, I think, can be taught if you're around the right people and you actually have the support system. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, yeah, you still gotta have that fire in you to want to do it.
Right. Thank you. I agree 100%. And and please allow me. I don't. Entrepreneurship and money are two different things. Okay. So let's not identify who is a good entrepreneur or entrepreneurship with how much money they have accumulated, because I don't believe that's true. Maybe that's a business person. You can be a good entrepreneur and be a poor business person. Entrepreneurship, for example, is, I remember doing some research, and the Navy uh, first started or came up with the internet, okay, through the submarines and things of that nature. Would those guys and women believe that they were entrepreneurs? They probably wouldn't say, yeah, we're great entrepreneurs. But that level of thinking created a total different world, and that's where it came from. So as well, and you might have seen some family members cooking in the kitchen and begin to change, or bring in flavors out of something, and using different ingredients, or finding another way to, I don't want to say skin a cat. Now we're talking about food, but that is entrepreneurial. That's a way of thinking. And it can be on your job, or it can be for your own business. So somebody else, what makes a successful entrepreneur?
I think you have a good tolerance for risk.
Mm.
Either having
like that.
I like to call the ulcer gauge, or the ulcer index, or the sleep gauge. I mean, what kind of risk can you handle? What are you able to put on, to take a chance and be able to sleep at night?
I will say, this is James. I would say the ability to know how to network with individuals, being resourceful, understanding your market, and knowing where to get answers when you do run into roadblocks, and not to easily get discouraged.
Right. Excellent. But resourceful and networking, very strong elements. Excellent. Very good answers. Very good
I
answers.
was going to add one to that, to be able to see the broad future, and try to, because to me, I've seen people who have tried to start businesses and not be very successful, and it's because they can't see the broadness of it, or they try to make too much of a benefit just directly for themselves and not the business.
Right. Right. I understand that. And it's a good point. to see the big picture and where you fit in the big picture and how to, I would kind of respond and say that, how does your business add value? And we'll talk about that in the presentation. And that value, there's two people that it's got to add value to. And I'll give you a little cheat sheet. One is you, the owner, but the other is the customer. Both parties have to gain value in order for the business to be sustained. Is there a better time? Is there a better time to pursue entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, understanding the opportunities such as like credit markets, in your area, if whatever particular business or avenue of approach that you're wanting to, to endure or to, undertake, what is that market like within your area, region, or, your targeted market space?
Right.
And plus you can't do this in a closet. It's good to be around like-minded folks that are, you're either a group or a club, that can help talk about, opportunities, and whether to get that sentiment, if it's a good idea, bad idea, based on your market parameters.
Right, right. Can you explain that for us, Ms. Fannin?
What I mean by that is like in our business, what we foresee in our future of potentially one day having up to 20 employees, and that would in turn make them and their families benefit from the success of our business.
Oh, okay, I understand what you're saying. Right, right. Now, are you saying that the employees have to also gain value through the business?
Yes.
Okay, interesting, interesting.